Welcome, everybody, to Greg Talks to People because facing my social anxiety head on is cheaper than therapy. On today's show, we have the man behind Tap Out Corner and the Maven Huffman YouTube channel. It's Zach Werre. Welcome to the show, Mr. Corner.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. I love that intro. That's amazing. Thank you for having me, sir. It's great being with you.
Of course. The question I ask everybody at the beginning is really simple. How did you get into wrestling?
Oh man, it's kind of a journey, but to make a long story short, I was really into video games for the longest time. That was like my first major passion, playing like the GameCube and Nintendo 64, and later the Wii. And I got into video game collecting. This is like kind of like the late 2000s, and I remember finding on YouTube people showing off their video game collections. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea, like collecting video games. Like, what a novel concept. And so, but being a kid, I didn't have a ton of cash. So the console I tended to collect the most for was the Nintendo 64. And there was a used game store where I live. And so I always like to just keep building the collections, keep adding more and more games. And at the time, at least, some of the cheapest games that the store had were wrestling games. So it was like WCW versus NWO Revenge and WWF No Mercy on the Nintendo 64. Classic. And so, yeah, like they were like $2 or $3. So I'm like, okay, and like I was never a wrestling fan, but like seeing it, like kind of the idea of like wrestling intrigued me. I'm like, okay, it's like, it is a sport, but it's also like their characters and their storylines. So it's, kind of all the stuff that I like as well. So playing the Nintendo 64 games, the first one I think I got was the WCW Nitro game that was on Nintendo 64. It was a terrible video game, but
very much.
Yeah, exactly. But from that I got introduced to like, oh, there's this guy called Sting, and he has like white face paint on. That's really cool. And there's Goldberg. This guy looks really cool. Like, I went and like found like, okay, they're like it's based on like real life, and kind of like I said, there's all these characters and storylines. So that's kind of how I got introduced to it. And then like through YouTube I was able to watch matches and clips, and then I started getting introduced to like wrestling fans who discuss wrestling, and I'd start to learn more and more about it. And slowly but surely I kind of figured out just how wrestling works. You have these weekly shows and they build up to pay-per-views, and that just got invested in some of the different characters, the different wrestlers and stuff. And so just slowly but surely I got more and more into the whole wrestling world and WWE and everything. But it all started with those Nintendo 64 wrestling games.
The absolute classics. The Nitro and Thunder, and also like Backstage. WCW only had like 2 or 3 really good games.
Yeah.
Like rest, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, like WCW versus NWO World Tour and WCW NWO Revenge. Those I think were like the best ones they had, at least the ones that I played.
Mm-hmm,
kind of like WCW in a nutshell. There was definitely some gems in there, but there was also a lot of trash.
that's very fair. Now, as mentioned, you have 2 incredibly successful YouTube channels. So how did you get onto the YouTube like creator side of things?
Yeah. And that kind of ties into how I got into wrestling, because the way I got into YouTube was actually through seeing those video game collection videos. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I'm into video games, and people will make videos showing off their game collections or their game rooms and stuff. And I love seeing what games people had, and like everyone would give little quick anecdotes about each game in their collection and stuff. And so I thought, like, that's really cool. And so that was like the first ever YouTube video I made was, I think, in 2000. It was either 2008 or 2009, and it was just showing off all the Nintendo Wii and Nintendo GameCube games that I had. And so that's kind of how I got into the whole YouTube side of things. But then, again, like with the wrestling, I started to learn, okay, like there's all sorts of different videos on YouTube, and then like when I got into wrestling, I found there's wrestling YouTubers and people who talk about the current shows. They give, top 10s. They just, they talk about it, share their thoughts on various wrestlers. And so then from there, I got kind of interested in that. Like, oh, I would, kind of like to, share my thoughts or do videos on, this and that. And so in addition to do wrestling content, I also would do other things like I did Lego stop motion animations, and that's where you take the little Lego figurines, and then you take a picture, move them a little bit, take another picture, and then you put them all together, and then becomes kind of looks like they're moving on their own. And did a lot of stuff like that, just tons of different channels. But through that, a lot of those never went anywhere. But because I did all those, tried so many different things, I just learned, oh, hey, here's how you edit, and here's how you add music, and here's how you do a voiceover. Oh, and how you can write a script. And so I was still, even though I was doing a lot of stuff that didn't eventually end up going anywhere, I was still learning a lot. And then in 2015, after I had graduated from high school, I was, like, I want to, I really want to pursue this YouTube thing. I'm just not sure what I should do. I tried like Lego stop motion, the video games, tons of other different channels I started, and just realized I don't think this is it. But in 2015, in the summer of 2015, I was like, I haven't really done a wrestling YouTube channel yet. I should, why don't I give that a shot? And so it's still on the channel. If you go, the very first video I ever did was the history of Sin Cara. And Sin Cara was the masked luchador. He came to WWE in 2011. Kind of infamous for how much he would botch and make mistakes in the ring. But I did a video kind of just almost kind of like a mini documentary where I just thought, how did he get into wrestling? And the thing I thought was, the reason why I picked him specifically was because I thought it was interesting how WWE at one point, they got the original guy who played Sin Cara, he left, but they kept the character, someone different under the mask. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. And maybe not everyone knows that. So I thought, so that was kind of the reason I chose him, and did the first video. It was a lot of work. I hadn't done anything quite like that. And I wasn't really good at the voiceover. And so I did, but I got it done, put it out there, and I was just like, man, this is a lot of work. And then, I'm just like, I just don't think I'm going to, this isn't it. This is just too much. I'm not going to do it. But I was like, I've got it done. I might as well just post it on YouTube, just get it out there. So posted it and kind of, moved on. But like a few weeks after I put it on YouTube, I went back just to see, okay, did this got 10 views at least, but I'd seen it had a few thousand views. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could revisit this a little bit. And so that's kind of where Tap Out Corner started. And that was one of the first channels that really got some traction for me. And so I'd stay on and off with it for about 4 years. I'd do it for a little bit, and then I kind of I don't know if I really want to be doing wrestling. So I'd kind of take a break from it. Then something would happen in the wrestling world, or I'd get an idea. I'm like, ooh, I want to make this video. And then I'd kind of get back into it. So it was very on and off with it. And at the same time, I was going to school, going to college and stuff, and also working a regular job. So that's also another reason why it was kind of off and on as well. And so then in the summer of 2019, I had graduated at the end of 2018, at the end of the summer of 2018. And I was I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back and continue school, or if I wanted to, I wanted to see just what I could do in the workforce, what opportunities were out there. And so I was doing a few different jobs, nothing that was really in my field, but just trying to find something to get started with. And just they weren't the right jobs for me. They were really stressful, and just stuff like that. This just isn't for me. And so July of 2019, I was in between jobs, and at the time there was some stuff going on in the wrestling world. So I was like, I'm gonna give this, gonna make this Tap Out Corner video real quick, and just put something out there. I'd posted in probably about 9 months at that point. So put it up this video, and it did well. And I did a few more videos that month. And so by the end of July of 2019, I think I'd made like $700 from the Tap Out Corner channel. So like, oh, maybe this could be a part-time job or something, So then from that point on, I stayed pretty consistent with it. I did some other jobs. I started working at it's called the Day Center for Premier. So it's kind of a local arena here where I live. And so I was working there, but I was still doing the Tap Out Corner. I was staying pretty diligent with that, especially since I was out of school. And then when COVID hit, that couldn't work at the arena convention center anymore. So I had another job that I was doing once a week as well. So, but slowly but surely, it just kind of gradually it was like, okay, I don't need to do this thing anymore. I can get rid of this. I kept working on Tap Out, and that kept growing slowly but surely. And so then finally got to the point where I'm just like, I think I could just focus 100% on Tap Out Corner and YouTube. And so then once that opportunity came, I took it, and kind of been that way ever since.
That's awesome. I mean, it's always a good feeling when you put a lot of work into something and it gets the recognition that you hope it gets.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Now, with the success of both channels, obviously criticism and like some negative comments come along with it. So how do you deal with the negativity that comes along with having those level of popularity in YouTube channels?
That's a great question. I guess honestly, the way it goes, I'll see something like one, especially on the Maven channel. I've seen it ever since we started. It seems like as I comment, like, man, they're gonna run out of ideas soon. Maven's career wasn't that long. You guys are gonna run out of ideas soon.
Mhm.
And so I think the way, like, for in that particular case and kind of the big picture as well, I'm just like, well, just keep going, like that's kind of my best way of that, not only for that particular comment, but in general, if there's
Mm.
criticism about like, oh, this wasn't a great video. Okay, well, just make better videos. So it's just kind of basically, I guess, just trying to prove the criticism wrong, I guess, in a way. And I mean, at the same time, there is sometimes baseless criticism, but for the most part, every bit of criticism has some degree of truth to it. So trying to look at that, okay, like sometimes you can kind of tell it's not constructive criticism. It's coming from they're trying to antagonize you a bit, but there's still truth to that. And there is genuine criticism, like, hey guys, like, you guys, we like your videos, but this one was kind of, subpar. And you always hate hearing that, but looking back at it,
I have a video in mind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, yes. I have several in mind actually. So like, there's plenty of times too where it's like, yeah, like I don't like it, but they're 100% on point. So that's just okay. What about this video wasn't good, or whatever. Just how can we improve next time? So that's kind of the best way, is just take the truth, subtract the truth from it. And I'd say in some cases there is no truth to it. Sometimes they're baseless, but more often than not, there is at least some degree of truth, if not a lot of truth to the criticism. So just subtract the truth from that, and not the truth, and use that like, hey, let's just use that and make ourselves better. And so it's worked for me, at least.
There you go. Now, one of the things outside of wrestling that you really enjoy happens to be the Goosebumps franchise.
Yes.
So how did you become a fan of that, and how has that fandom been sustained to this point?
Yeah, so this is like when I was in middle school, so kind of like the late 2000s, and I was really bad. Like my reading and writing was not up to par, so I'd actually go to a different school that just offered a few more classes, and so they had a class that was kind of for kids like me who just weren't quite at the level of reading and writing that they needed to be. And so, and one of the things that they did was, I think it was like maybe every month or every other week, they had a public library in the school that we would go to, and just, hey, grab a book, this is going to be your book to read for the next, 2 weeks or the next month. And so, and I just, most of the time I was okay, I got to grab something, I don't really like this reading thing, but they told me I have to grab something. So I did. And then one time going through the library, I saw this book where it had a kid in the water, and you could see this giant hammerhead shark getting ready to eat him. And I'm just like, whoa, like what's going on there? Like, I want to find out what's that story? What's going to happen? Does the shark eat the kid? Like what's going on with that? And so, and I saw the title of it was Goosebumps Deep Trouble. And so I'm like, man, this is like, let's, I want to find out what's going on here. So, and then, so I read it, and like, it was one of the books I like remember enjoying reading. I was like, oh yeah, this is really fun. This is awesome. Like I'd really read a whole lot of books that I enjoyed, like legitimately. And so, and then I found, it's this whole series. It's made by this guy called R.L. Stine, and he's done, hundreds of books just like this. And so it's like, okay, I got to read anyway, so I might as well keep reading these. And then, it became where it wasn't even just a requirement. I was just, I enjoy reading these books. So so it really, and the big picture, that really helped me again with my reading and writing skills, which would later go on for Tap Out Corner. I was able to write scripts for videos and stuff. And so, and that's, what helped lead me to working with Maven and a lot of other things. So big part of like one of the reasons I really enjoy R.L. Stine's work and Goosebumps is just because of the impact it had on my life and my career as well. So, and I just, they're, the way I can just kind of describe is they're cozy, kind of like a Hallmark movie. You're not necessarily watching it. It's like, man, this is, tackling the bigger themes of life. It's really making me think. It's just, they're cozy, they're fun, they're so it's not, it's not going to make you. Goosebumps books aren't, R-rated and really, let's try to be as disgusting and vile as we possibly can. It's just, it's fun, it's and everything, and so that's one of the things I really like about them, just all the different creatures and storylines and stuff, and so that's kind of all that kind of wrapped up together is one of the reasons I've really stayed with Goosebumps all these years and why it's still kind of a big part of my life.
It's amazing how like you invest in something years before something else major happens in your life, and you don't even see how they're connected at the time.
Yes.
It's amazing to me how, I don't know. It's just very fascinating how some things turn into other things, and you don't even see how that works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just there's so many little things, and then in hindsight, when you reflect on it, like, I could see why this little thing led to this, which led to that, which led to this. Like it's just crazy, and like and I like going for walks, especially now that's finally starting to warm up, and there's a lot of things I just like reflect on and think about, just how this one little thing led to this, and just it's crazy just the way life works.
Definitely is. Now, you also started up a wrestling promotion called Below Zero Wrestling. Now, as someone who held the pen for one show back in 2014 in the parking lot of a church, I can't imagine running my own promotion for more than that. So, how did all of that come about?
Yeah, well, that's great story, and so it started, man. We were just talking about Greg. It can kind of like I could go back and really retrace the steps, but essentially back when I was in high school, so this is the early 2010s to the mid 2010s. I really, I still liked wrestling. And I wanted to do something in wrestling. Hadn't done Tap Out Corner yet, but I liked the idea of like, man, I'd love to like film wrestling shows and make like hype videos and like edit wrestling shows and like make promo videos. And so then, I knew about WWE, and I think I kind of knew about independent wrestling, which, are just essentially WWE, but, smaller, local.
Right.
And so my neck of the woods, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, like I kind of was looking around, like, is there anything like in Sioux Falls? And this, at the time there wasn't. And so I was kind of just, looking around for places, because I was like, I just really want to create I really want to just be a part of a company, film for them. And so, but the hard part is just, again, there wasn't really anything nearby and everything. And so, and obviously a school, it was, just tough to, drive, 5 hours to a company, somewhere in Minnesota or somewhere in Nebraska, and so
right.
I did work with a few companies remotely. I would reach out, and just be like, hey, I have skill in video and graphic design, and I could do some web design. I just would love to help. And so, a lot just wouldn't get back to you, but there were a few that did take me up on it. And so there was a company in Minnesota I worked with for a little bit. So there was actually one in Texas I did a little bit as well. Just kind of doing some video stuff for them, maybe working on their website a little bit. And so those were kind of always short term, would only go on for so long. And it just wasn't the same as, actually being at the shows, and so it was still something I really wanted to do. And in 2015, shortly after I graduated high school, Nick Dinsmore, who wrestling fans will know better as Eugene from WWE, his fiance at the time was originally from Sioux Falls. And I think Nick Dinsmore, he was a trainer at the WWE Performance Center, which had just opened recently at that time. And then he left. And so I think he was looking to get his own school and promotion started. And since Sioux Falls, South Dakota didn't have anything going on, and he had, his fiance was from the area and she had connections, he thought like, hey, let's move out here. Let's get a school going. Let's get, shows running. And so he started Midwest All Pro Wrestling was the name of the company. That was the school. And then also the promotion that ran the shows. And so once I heard about that, I just reached out, hey, I'm in the area. I'd love to help make this thing happen. So I really give Nick Dinsmore, thank him a ton for just that opportunity. Because that was the first time I'd ever been able to go to an independent wrestling show and just gotten exposed to that world. And that was just a lot of fun. Some of my best wrestling memories was being a part of that and being part of something at the ground level, and something that was local, wasn't, in a different state or a different city. It was, in my where I lived. So that was really cool. And especially too, because I don't know up to that point, there really had been a wrestling promotion, not only in Sioux Falls, but in the entire state. And so that was just a really cool opportunity to be part of that. So I worked with Nick Dinsmore for about, I think, a year and a half, because then in 2017, that's when I went to start going to college full time. I just really wanted to pursue my degree. And so, but in my head still, I was like, man, I would like the opportunity to run my own shows at some point, just really have full control over everything. And so for a few years, I was kind of looking, I liked what Nick Dinsmore had done, kind of found an area that just wasn't being served and, got something going. And so I was looking around, areas kind of, where I was at. And so the tough part, though, you kind of alluded to it earlier, Greg, is just that starting up any business, much less a wrestling company, it's a huge undertaking. And you don't realize just how much work it is before you get into it. And so I was always looking for someone like, man, in a perfect world, I'd love to partner with someone, that we could do this together. And so I spent a few years, trying to find the right opportunity. And then in 2020, I had put out a post on social media, just looking for, basically just what I shared with you, just looking for someone, hey, I want to do this wrestling promotion. I got, money, capital we can invest in this, but I want to find someone who wants to get this going as well. So a few people, hey, you should talk to this gentleman named Nick Stokey. He lives in Fargo, North Dakota. Fargo had a company, a wrestling promotion based there a few years back, but they had shut down. So it was, there was technically a company in Fargo, but they were like 21 up, blood and guts, deathmatch style wrestling. So there was wrestling, but again, that's, a certain type of wrestling.
Yeah, it's a niche thing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, but Nick, he was based in Fargo. That's about a 3.5 hour drive from where I'm at in Sioux Falls. And so throughout 2020, we just got to know each other, kind of talk, hey, here's what, I'm kind of, what I was thinking, what he was thinking. And so, and then, just finally we just said, okay, let's just make this thing happen. And May of 2021, and almost exactly, I can't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but almost exactly 5 years ago, we had our very first show. It was based Fargo, North Dakota. The venue was called the Sanctuary Event Center. Still there. It's still a fantastic venue. It was absolutely perfect for what we wanted to do. And yeah, we had our first show up in Fargo. We called it Below Zero Wrestling, was the name of the company. Because it's really cold up in Fargo, North Dakota, being that far north. So we thought, that fits. It's rooted to the area there. And so then kind of from there, we just started running shows in pretty much mostly in North Dakota. We would do a few in Minnesota. We did one over in Montana. We even did one in Sturgis, South Dakota. And for wrestling fans will know, that's the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally that happens every August there. And that's also where WCW did their Road Wild pay-per-views. And so that was a very, very cool opportunity to be part of that. And also cool just, getting to be a part of, working with some of the names. We got, we had Eric Bischoff at a show. We had Eric Rowan at a different event. We had X-Pac at one, John Morrison. Even had one of our first name talents that we brought in. I think actually our very first name talents that we brought in was Nick Dinsmore. And so that was really cool. Just, the history that we had together was cool having him, being able to have him there. So great experience. And I learned a lot, not just about business and, event production, about wrestling as well, and just how the wrestling business works and everything. So really fantastic opportunity. It was a bucket list. It was a dream for me to do it. So I'm really, really thankful for that. And I give Nick Stokey a lot of credit too, because he was the one that was based in Fargo. So there was a lot of stuff that fell on his shoulders. And so, yeah, just can't say enough. It was a great opportunity, and I'm always thankful that I was able to do it.
I don't have this as one of the questions listed, but I'm just curious. Do you ever take a bump?
No. I always thought about it, but I'm also like, the way my mind works is I always think of the worst possible scenario. That's always, rather than being in the back of my head, it's always at the front. Yeah. And I'm just like, man, what if I hurt myself, and then like what happens during the show, like we got to do this, has to get done. We have to get, like there's so much stuff that's to get done. I'm just like, I don't want to and then also just, the physical side, I'm like, I don't want to like do something and then all of a sudden I'm in the hospital, like, yeah. And so,
I'll tell you from experience, back bumps aren't terrible. It's the face bumps that'll get you.
Ooh,
At least for me.
first-hand experience.
Yeah, firsthand experience. So Maven's YouTube channel has been such a welcome addition to the wrestling YouTube space.
Thank you.
So what is it about that channel that makes it special, not just to you, but to him as well?
Gotcha. Oh man, it's the phrase I always say: the big picture is 1,000 smaller pictures. So all that's to say, it's a lot of things. I'd say that's the analytical side of things. I think one thing that helped us stand out is usually the format for a lot of wrestlers who were doing YouTube or doing podcasts. They did it more of a podcast style. They would do, an hour to 2 hour long episode each week, and then take clips from the episode and put them as short snippets on YouTube.
Yep.
And usually be the wrestler and a co-host. And so, again, I think that's a great format. I'm not saying anything against anyone who does that, because it is great format. But that's where I saw our opportunity, because I'm like, there's not a whole lot of channels, if any, I can think of at the time, where it's the wrestler, it's just the wrestler, and he's looking at the camera, he's talking, talking to the camera, which therefore he's talking to the viewer. And so I thought, like, instead of doing like a podcast style, let's do more of a YouTube style. It's just him, there's editing, there's going to be B-roll, there'll be pictures, there'll be music. It's a little less raw, but it's a little bit more polished. But I think there's our opportunity, just because I didn't really see anyone doing that. And then also just allowed us to play to the algorithm a bit more. So sometimes the hard part can be taking a podcast and trying to make those into YouTube videos. And so the better format for the algorithm is to just make a YouTube video, and just make a YouTube video, as opposed to making a podcast and trying to take those individual snippets and make them into YouTube videos. So that was one thing that helped us. And we could, when we were making the videos, we should tease this, or we should do this, or we should say it like this, because for the algorithm side, for the audience side, that'll just land better. And so I think that was one big thing. Obviously, just talking to the camera, talking to the viewer, and also just the angle of making YouTube videos that are about wrestling. So those are, I think, for right off the top of my head, those are probably two of the biggest things I think that made the Maven Huffman channel pretty special.
All right. And I also wanted to ask this real quick,
Yeah.
because I asked Maven this question on the show, and it is, I'll admit, a little self-serving. We almost collaborated twice
Yes.
for videos on Maven's channel last year, but they didn't come together for whatever reason. So I'm asking, is this the year, perhaps, that we can make something a reality?
Never say never. I'll say that much.
I figured that was going to be your answer. I figured.
It's always in the back of our head, because I think we were talking about it when last August, when we were all in New Jersey for SummerSlam.
Yep.
And so we're having some discussions with it, and I think one of the ideas we had was we went to the parking lot where I forget the name of the venue where SummerSlam was.
MetLife Stadium.
MetLife Stadium. Yes, there we go. And so we were like, maybe this could be the right opportunity. And one of it was also the day we filmed the video with Mike Chioda. And so in hindsight, it worked better, because I know the video that we would have done with you, Greg, like, it would just, that would have needed to been the whole day, and I would have hated to like rush it. And so,
right. Yeah.
But that was one we were, that was one opportunity we were thinking of. So keep reminding us, because I think there's sooner or later there's going to be an opportunity.
I'll tell you what, I am one of those people who is persistent to a fault. So you don't have to worry about that.
Resistance is good. And because we always bring it up, I think even we do our weekly live streams on the Patreon. And whenever we have a question like, what year was that? Or who was in that match? Or where was that match took place? Or any sort of wrestling question we can't think of off the top of our head, we always just say, Greg, can you fill us in? And we wait for your comment to pop up. And then, oh yeah, it was, it was at the Allegiant Stadium, August, so you're always our default wrestling encyclopedia whenever we have any sort of wrestling trivia question.
Yeah, but I am the wrestling fact checker for Maven's Patreon for a reason.
Exactly. we had and when we were in Las Vegas for WrestleMania week, Maven did trivia night at like a kind of bar and restaurant that was on the Vegas Strip, and we were just both thinking like, man, we should get Greg here to see how Greg would handle all these questions, because I'd say there was definitely a few more easy ones than hard ones, but there was some definite, like there was one like I don't even know how, like I had no idea. It was I could have said anything. So
do you know what the question was?
It was like, I can't remember. I know the answer to it. I can't remember how the question was phrased, but it was like, who was like the first person Mr. Fuji managed?
Ooh,
I can't remember what the exact question was. I know what the answer to the question was, because it was just like, yeah, I would have never guessed that in a million years. And for anyone listening, don't quote me. I can't remember what the exact question was, but the answer was Killer Khan. I'm pretty sure. Like that was, I don't know if it was the first person Mr. Fuji managed, but it was like who's the name of this wrestler that Mr. Fuji is managing in this picture. So it was something like that. It's like I'd never heard the name Killer Khan before, and so
that's a deep cut.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, wow. But we were thinking about you the whole time during that trivia. We love to have Greg here just to see how he would do with all these questions.
Did you guys get any footage of that?
We did, actually, yes. And I think I saw your comment. So the only things I was kind of using it both as like a testing, because we did a few other things there. So I wanted to test just to see how long will the cameras record and how the audio come out. So there's some parts of the trivia night that the camera works a little shoddy because I'm like trying to test stuff up, but we did film it. So we might upload that to the Patreon.
Yeah, I'd personally love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll throw it up there.
So with all that said, do you have an ultimate goal that you'd like to achieve? You're already working on both channels. They're both successful. Is there something that you're striving for, or is this where you're happy with the success?
Yeah, no, definitely happy with where we're at, and like, I guess there's always a lot of smaller goals. Like obviously, I'd love to get to 1 million subscribers on the Maven channel, because we have some fun stuff in mind if we get to that. And so little things like that. There's some videos too with like the Maven channel that I'd really like to do. It's just like the practicality, the investment that's needed for it is a little bit tricky. Like one I'd love to do is 100 years of wrestling championships. Like try to either find the oldest wrestling championship belt, or get like a replica, and then show kind of how championship belts and how the wrestling industry progressed. Because I know in like the kind of early mid 1900s, the NWA was like the big governing body of wrestling, and the NWA championship was like the most prestigious title in wrestling. Then obviously it later became the WWF championship, and that whole belt went through several different designs and stuff. So I'd love to do a video like that, but it's just getting like not the actual belt, because I know that's like a lot of those belts we wouldn't be able to get our hands on, but like even replicas, because even replica belts like go for several hundred, if not a few $1,000s. So videos like that though, like I really like to do. And then there's always a bigger scale. There's always like part of me that's would like to do something, I guess for lack of a better term, not independent. I do like that we are very independent. There's a lot of flexibility and just everything. But there's part of me that almost like the idea of being part of a bigger project. I don't know whether that's being part of a bigger wrestling company or just something else. I think I want to at least try it just to see. I don't know if it's if that's something I'd actually really enjoy or not, but something I'd at least like to try, whether it be like helping with marketing for a major movie, or being part, doing some stuff for a major wrestling company, or whatever. And so something I think I kind of want to at least try, and then see you might no, I prefer the independent route, but something I want to try, just be part of a bigger project.
Can you imagine just like a reality show with Maven?
I could, because he just like and like reality, and it's ironic because that's how he got started. Kind of this whole thing with wrestling. The YouTube channel was the reality show Tough Enough, and maybe Ken, he was in that the movie Days of Sodom that just got released. But even then, I found out that there were a few lines in that movie that, you know, the director kind of like, I want to, you know, because we always stay faithful to the source material. So, you know, we kind of, you know, not as much wiggle room on this, but the director gave him a lot of freedom to, like, you know, here's what we have written and here's kind of the direction, like, here's where we kind of need to get to, but you can kind of, you know, come up with lines and say it in your own way. And like, and I think that's the best way to go with Maven, is like, he does a lot better when it's just, you know, if you give him bullet points, you know, hey, you know, we need you to promote this, or we need you to talk about this. You know, that's how we do with our videos. You know, we don't write scripts or anything. It's just Maven going off the cuff, and that's what works best for him. So I think like a reality show, I think, would be fit perfectly for him. You know, a little bit of direction, you know, maybe some stuff to hit, but you know, that whole freedom to just say this how you say it, because that always works the best for Maven, when he just, you know, can say it however in his own words, you know.
Just an episode of Maven and Gina going to Staples. That'd be
appointment
TV.
Staples story. Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, I think Maven would be perfect for that. And I mean, he already has with Tough Enough and stuff. So, you know, and I'm blanking on the name. I know the name. Oh, Surreal Life. Also a part of that. So yeah, I think Maven reality TV show just mix really well together, I feel.
If I knew some people who work for production companies, I'd pitch that all day.
Yeah, yes. If anyone listening knows any production companies that want to do a reality show with Maven, let us know.
Or if you're interested in game shows, I got a few of those too.
Yeah.
So throughout your journey, who would you say has helped you the most? And is there anybody that you'd like to give their flowers to that's been influential to you?
Talked with Nick Stokey, and Below Zero Wrestling. He's still running it. They just had their 5th anniversary show, so that was wonderful. And he's perfect for with Below Zero and everything. But I really thank him a lot, because without him, I wouldn't have been able to live that dream of running an independent wrestling company. So thank him a lot for that. Oh man, I know there's like so many people, but then trying to think of them off the bat. Obviously, my parents a lot, because they just supported me. I did so many different things. They would make sure, you know, to always support me and help me. I remember in high school, I was kind of doing I kind of started a video production club for the high school. And one of the things we did was I did like a DVD of the basketball season. And that's obviously, you know, a few $100 to get cases and the little sleeves, you know, the little printed sleeves that you put inside the DVD, and then the actual DVDs themselves. And we also had a sticker that needed to go on the DVDs and everything. And I remember them shelling out to make that happen. And so that was really cool. And so them, obviously, my brother Josh, he's the one who edits all the videos, or most of the videos, for the Maven Huffman channel. And he always goes above and beyond. He's it's always like, you know, it kind of sounds biased, but it's true. Like, or because the editors I like working with are the ones who they'll add stuff that I wouldn't think of, you know, where they just, you know, hey, I was thinking of presenting the information like this, or I was thinking of presenting it like this. And he does that all the time. Like, I would have never thought to do it that way, but that's significantly better. And and a lot of there's a lot of times where he'd be working like until, you know, 4 or 5 a.m. and still have to get up at like 7 a.m. for another job that he had. And so he would, like he's never had like I'm out at 8 p.m. You know, you'll have to figure out how to get this video done, you know, on your own. Like, he just, you know, hey, if it takes till 5 a.m., I'm here till 5 a.m. getting this video done. And so that's happened several times. It's a little better now because he's now full-time, so it helps out a lot. But there were a lot of times where he was, you know, half and half between us and then another job he had. And so he still had to be there on time for that job. So a lot of kudos to him for the sacrifice and obviously the talent that he brings to it as well. And so I guess another one too, not in so much a direct way, but not indirect either, but one of the YouTubers that I watched, Tim Schmoyer is his name. He runs a channel called Video Creators, and he was one I started watching when I was really trying to learn YouTube and how to make better videos and all that stuff, and how the more nuances of it. And so I watch a lot of his videos to learn, you know, just how to make, what makes a good YouTube video, not just a good video, but a good YouTube video. And so as I didn't talk to him directly, I watched the videos that he would put out, but I learned a lot from him. And so, thank him for putting those out and sharing his knowledge, not only with myself, but a lot of other people. And so, yeah, I know that there's more people. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. I guess also in general, a lot of the editors, both because we had a few for the Maven channel, but also for like Tap Out Corner. A lot of different editors I've worked with and other people who've helped me a lot, people that have helped research. Dean Couch is one. He helps me with a lot of researching topics and getting clips and stuff to talk about on Tap Out Corner. So thank him a lot for that. And so, yeah, just thank you to everyone who's helped out with the Tap Out Corner stuff too, because without that, I don't think I'd be able to do the Maven channel as well. So thank all those people a lot for helping me manage all this, because without them, I don't know where I would be, but I wouldn't be here. That's for sure.
All right, Zach, thank you so much for joining us on the show. For those wondering, where can they find you on the internet?
Main places, Tap Out Corner, the Tap Out Corner YouTube channel. That's my channel. It's just me talking about WWE, talking about wrestling, and then the Maven channel. I'm not on the Maven channel, but the Maven Huffman channel. That's I'm part of that as well. And I guess if you want, I'm doing my own personal channel, just called Zach Werre, ZACHWERRE. And so, and I actually have a video that goes into kind of a little more in depth into the Maven channel and how that came about, and kind of some of the behind the scenes, the more nuances that we do to help get our videos out there. And so those are the 3 best places to catch me and see what I'm doing.
All right, perfect. There you have it. So go check out Zach's content over at Tap Out Corner, on the Maven Huffman YouTube channel, and his own channel. So thank you very much for watching this episode of Greg Talks to People. You can find me on all forms of social media at Greg Cherry Brand. And until next time, be kind to each other.